On my wedding day, I was locked in a back-of-house storage closet. When the door was bolted from the outside, I thought it was just a mistake by the venue staff. I knocked a couple of times. No one answered. I pulled out my cell phone. 1 bar of signal. I sent a text message. The sending icon spun 3 times. Failed. The closet was small, filled with folded tables, chairs, and unopened floral supplies. Among them was a box of white roses. I had personally selected them 3 weeks ago from a specialty grower in California. The variety sent via temperature-controlled shipping to the hotel. I recognized them. My own note was on the cardboard box. Faint pink at the heart. Bloomed 1/3. The time on my phone was 2:17 p.m. The rehearsal was scheduled for 2:30 p.m. I knocked a few more times, my knuckles going numb. No one came. Faintly, I could hear voices from the end of the hallway, laughter, the sound of chairs dragging across the floor. I tried a different spot, slamming the heel of my hand against the heavy metal door. "Is anyone there?" I shouted. The echo dissolved into the hum of the AC vents. I sank to the floor, leaning against the door, and held my phone up high. The signal jumped to 2 bars. The message finally went through. It was to my wedding planner, a young woman named Chloe. "I'm locked in the service corridor C storage closet. Can you come get me?" Read. No reply. I called Graham. It rang 6 times. No answer. I called again. It went straight to voicemail. The third time, my hands had started to sweat. Not from nerves, but because the closet had no air conditioning of its own. The June humidity in New York seeped through the walls. My wedding dress clung to my back, the fabric heavy with absorbed sweat. I had designed this dress myself. The day after Graham proposed, 3 months ago, I started sketching. An occupational hazard for an architect. I couldn't accept picking something off a rack. I had to create it myself. The lace was custom ordered from a small atelier in France, hand-stitched with painstaking detail. The prototype alone went through 4 revisions. I'd made 3 trips to the Diamond District to find 57 freshwater pearls of matching size and luster for the neckline. I sewed each one on by hand. While sewing the 30th pearl, at 4 a.m., I pricked my middle finger. A drop of blood stained the white satin. I spent 20 minutes dabbing it with hydrogen peroxide until it was gone. Graham didn't know about any of this. He only knew that I'd been working late a lot for the past 3 months. Sometimes I wouldn't get back from my firm until 2 or 3 in the morning. He'd text me, "Working late again? Take care of yourself." And he'd add a kissy face emoji. I thought he was just not good at expressing himself. For 5 years he'd been like this, not passionate but stable. Like a reliable load-bearing wall that would never fail. 2:42 p.m. The voices outside became more organized, as if a formal event was starting. Music began to play through the sound system. It was the song I'd chosen for the processional, Mendelssohn's Wedding March. But not the original version. It was a string quartet arrangement I had specially commissioned. I remembered having 3 conference calls with the composer to get the tempo just right. I stood up and slammed on the door with all my might. "Is anyone there?" As my shoulder hit the metal, the lock made a scraping sound and then gave way. The door swung open 6 inches. I stumbled forward, catching myself on the frame. The cool air of the hallway rushed over me. I took a deep breath. The hem of my dress was now gray with dust. I lifted my skirt and hurried toward the ballroom. From a distance, the grand double doors of the ballroom were wide open, light pouring out. I saw the stage. There were 2 people on it. Graham, wearing the charcoal gray suit I had picked out for him. The tie was the one I'd bought him last week at Hermes, a silk tie with a subtle pattern. I remembered the sales associate telling me the pattern was called Eternal Knot. He was looking down, sliding a ring onto the finger of the person in front of him. That person was not me. It was Lily. Lily Bennett was wearing a white dress. Not a wedding gown, but it was white enough, long enough, and under the venue lights, it looked close enough. She had her face tilted up, her eyes glistening, her lips slightly trembling, as if she were desperately holding back some immense joy. In the audience sat about 30 people, Graham's college buddies, his partners from his private equity firm, his cousins. They were smiling, they were clapping. Someone was whistling. Finally, the day has come. Lily, congratulations. Graham, you finally came to your senses. I stood at the entrance, my legs weak. This wasn't a metaphor. The tendon behind my knee felt as if it had been surgically removed. I could feel my center of gravity sinking. I held onto the doorframe, my nails digging into the wood. Graham finished putting the ring on. He took Lily's hand, lifted it, and placed a kiss on her fingertips. I recognized that ring. A 3-carat, emerald-cut diamond in a platinum setting. Engraved on the inside was a single word. Eternal. I recognized it because I had gone with him to have it custom-made. 3 months ago, we sat at the counter at Tiffany & Co. on 5th Avenue for 2 hours. I helped him choose the design. I confirmed the engraving. I helped him measure the ring size against my own finger. At the time, I thought it was my ring. It's a surprise for the wedding day, he had said. Someone in the audience noticed me. The chatter died down, little by little, like ripples spreading across water. Gaze after gaze turned to land on me. I stood in the doorway of the ballroom, in the wedding dress I had spent 3 months sewing. My hair was plastered to my forehead from the half hour in the stuffy closet. My makeup was half melted. Graham looked up. When he saw me, his expression didn't change. No panic. No guilt. Not even surprise. He simply let go of Lily's hand and took 2 steps in my direction. Zoe, you're here. His tone was as casual as if I were 5 minutes late, not locked in a storage closet for 40. Lily stood behind him, her head bowed. Her shoulders were slightly hunched, and her fingers twisted the hem of her white dress. She looked aggrieved. What took you so long? Graham frowned. The rehearsal is almost over. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat felt clogged. I could feel my heart pounding, each beat a heavy thud against my ribs, making my chest ache. I was locked in the storage closet, I heard myself say. My voice was faint, as if coming from far away. Graham's frown deepened. But it wasn't concern, it was impatience. Locked in the storage closet? How is that possible? He glanced back at Lily, then back at me. Well, it doesn't matter. You're here now, just in time. Lily was helping you run through the ceremony. Helping me run through the ceremony? Yes, he said, with an air of complete self-assurance. You weren't here, and we couldn't just have everyone wait around on the clock. Lily was kind enough to help out and walk through the steps as your stand-in. You should thank her. Someone in the audience chimed in. Exactly, Lily is so considerate. Zoe, how could you be late for something this important? My gaze fell to Lily's hand. The ring was still on her finger. The emerald-cut diamond cast deep green reflections under the lights. 3 carats. Platinum. Eternal. The ring, I said. Graham paused. What? The ring on her hand. Graham glanced at Lily, then turned back to me, his face settling into an expression I had seen countless times before. The here we go again. Look, it's just for the rehearsal. We needed a prop, didn't we? He said. Zoe, don't be like this. A prop? I repeated the word. 3 months ago. Tiffany's. He held my hand, slipping different sample rings onto my finger, one by one. Whichever one you like, I'll buy them all for you. I chose the emerald cut. Good, he'd said. He had them engrave it. Eternal. That's my ring, I said, my voice a little louder now. The ballroom was so quiet I could hear the hum of the AC vents. Graham's mouth tightened. Zoe, he said, his voice low, adopting the tone he always used to placate a child. Can you not make a scene in front of everyone? That is my ring. The 3rd time I said it, my voice was finally steady. Behind Graham, Lily looked up. Her eyes were red, brimming with tears. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to say something but was holding back. She took a half step closer to Graham, her shoulder almost brushing his back. Graham, her voice was as thin as a thread. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to help. Graham's shoulders visibly relaxed. He turned to face me, his back to everyone else. His expression shifted from impatience to something deeper. Reproach. Zoe. He used my full name. Lily was doing you a favor. You were locked in a closet, and she volunteered to stand in for you. She was helping you. If you're not going to be grateful, fine. But to make a federal case out of this in front of all these people. He paused, taking a deep breath, as if reining something in. Do you really have to give her that look? I stared at him. At the face I had looked at for 5 years. I knew every angle. The vein that throbbed at his temple when he was angry. The laugh line on his left side that was deeper than his right. The way his eyes wouldn't blink when he was lying. He wasn't blinking now. You said she was helping me run through the ceremony. I said slowly. Then why was my phone's signal non-existent in there? Why was the storage closet door bolted from the outside? Why did my planner read my message and not reply? Graham's expression didn't waver. You're overthinking things. It was probably a screw-up by the hotel staff. A screw-up by the hotel. I nodded. Then I looked down at myself. The sweat-soaked dress clinging to my skin. One of the pearls on the neckline had come loose from the heat, hanging by a thread. The French lace on the hem was smudged with dust, and a small section was torn where I had stepped on it. 3 months. 57 pearls. 4 prototypes. A 4 a.m. drop of blood. I looked up at the ring on Lily's hand. Fine, I said, my voice flat. Then you two can continue the rehearsal. I turned. Behind me were 30 pairs of eyes, a brightly lit stage, and the string quartet music I had spent 3 conference calls finalizing. Zoe! Graham's voice called after me. I didn't stop. Zoo. I walked out of the ballroom. The hallway was long. The carpet thick. My heels made no sound. I walked about 20 paces and passed the storage closet. The door was ajar. The light still on inside. The box of roses, flown in from California, sat quietly in the corner. I reached the elevator bank and pressed the down button. When the doors opened, I stepped inside and turned around. At the end of the hallway, Graham was standing in the ballroom doorway. He hadn't followed me. He was just standing there, frowning, as if pondering the answer to some unimportant question. The elevator doors closed. I stared at my blurry reflection in the stainless steel panels. Melted makeup. Sweaty bangs. The pearl dangling precariously at my neckline. I reached up and plucked the pearl off. The snap of the thread was barely perceptible. The pearl rolled into my palm, round and warm, still holding my body heat. The elevator reached the underground parking garage. The doors opened, and a wave of cool, damp air washed over me. I stepped out. My heels clicked sharply on the concrete floor, the sound echoing in the empty space. I walked to my car, pulled the door open, and slid into the driver's seat. I didn't start the engine. I placed the pearl on the dashboard. It rolled once and stopped. Then I rested my forehead against the steering wheel. My hands were shaking. Not from the cold. The June garage was hot and humid. A thin layer of condensation covered the steering wheel. I gripped it, my knuckles turning white, holding on until my bones ached before I let go. I didn't cry. I just sat there, listening to the sound of my own breathing echoing in the enclosed space of the car. After a long time, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 20, my hands stopped shaking. I picked up my phone. Full bars. In my text threads, the planner, Chloe, had replied 40 minutes ago. Zoe, Graham said you were touching up your makeup and told us to start the rehearsal without you. I stared at the words for a long time. Then I scrolled up. 3 days ago, a text from Graham. Honey, our big day is in 2 days. Is your dress ready? I can't wait to see you in it. 5 days ago. Honey, have you been too burned out lately? Don't stay up so late. Your health is more important. After the wedding, we'll fly to the Maldives and actually decompress. A week ago. Thinking of you. 2 weeks ago. Let's go for the menu tasting this weekend. I've already made a reservation at that French place in Soho you wanted to try. I had replied to every single message. I had replied earnestly to every single one. I exited the conversation with Graham and opened another contact. Simon. Arup London. The last message he had sent me 3 months ago was still sitting there. Zoe. The offer from the London office still stands. You can come anytime. The team here is very excited to work with you. Your talent shouldn't be wasted in a localized market. He hadn't finished the thought, because 3 months ago, I had replied instantly, "Thank you, Simon. But I'm getting married soon. I'm not considering overseas opportunities at the moment." I stared at our conversation for 30 seconds. Then I typed 4 words. Is the offer still valid? Send. I put my phone down and leaned back in the seat. The garage was quiet enough to hear a distant ventilation fan turning. On the dashboard, the single pearl gleamed softly in the dim light. My phone lit up. Simon's reply was 2 words. Stilis. I closed my eyes. In my mind, I saw the angle of Graham's head as he lowered it to slide the ring onto Lily's finger. I had seen that angle before, 3 months ago, at Tiffany's, when he slipped the sample rings onto my finger. It was the exact same angle. I opened my eyes, locked my phone, and started the engine. The exit to the garage was on the north side. The ramp sloped upward. Sunlight flooded in from the opening, so bright it hurt my eyes. As I drove out, the rearview mirror showed the gray concrete walls of the hotel and a figure running out from the elevator bay. A dark gray suit. I didn't hit the brakes. That night, by 8 p.m., my phone had rung 7 times. The first 20 were from Graham. The rest were from his sister, Claire, his business partner, Mark, the wedding planner, Chloe, and my college roommate, who was one of the guests today. I didn't answer any of them. I sat in my apartment and hung the wedding dress on a hanger. The French lace on the hem was torn. The neckline was missing 1 pearl. The remaining 56 stood in a silent, orderly line under the lights, like a row of quiet witnesses. The 48th time my phone lit up, it was a text from Graham. Zoe, where the hell did you go? Everyone's waiting for you. For you to just walk out like that, how am I supposed to explain it to people? I called you 20 times. You didn't pick up once. Zoe, are you throwing another tantrum? The last message came at 9:03 p.m. Fine. You don't want to answer the phone. I'm coming over. We'll talk face to face. I stared at that last message for a long time. His phrasing. Another tantrum. As if this was the countless time I had been unreasonable. As if my anger was always just an emotional outburst to be managed, not a valid response to a real event. The doorbell rang. I didn't move. It rang 3 more times, then it turned into knocking. Zoe, open the door. Graham's voice came through the wood, laced with a tone I knew all too well. It wasn't pleading. It was patience. The patience of an adult dealing with a toddler. I know you're in there. Your car is parked downstairs. I stood up and walked to the door. When my hand touched the doorknob, I realized my fingertips were cold. I opened the door. Graham stood outside. He had changed out of the suit and was wearing a dark blue casual shirt, sleeves rolled up to his forearms. He was holding an insulated takeout bag. The first thing he did when he saw me was to let his tense brow relax slightly. You're okay, good, he said, his tone steady, as if relieved. I thought something had happened to you. Why did you just bolt like that? He moved to step inside, as naturally as he always did. I didn't move out of the way. His advance faltered. Zoe, what are you doing? I ignored the question. Why are you here? Graham looked at me, his eyes narrowing slightly. He held up the insulated bag. I brought you some soup from your favorite spot. You haven't eaten all day, have you? You know you can't run on an empty stomach. His voice was gentle and concerned, just as it had been on countless nights over the past 5 years. I'm not asking about the soup, I said. I'm asking why you are here. Graham put the bag down on the floor and leaned against the doorframe. His expression shifted from concerned to a look of, all right, let's talk. Zoe, I know what you saw today made you uncomfortable, he began. But can you just calm down and let me explain? Explain what? The thing with Lily, it was a complete misunderstanding. You were late. The rehearsal couldn't wait. And Lily volunteered to help you run through the steps. I wasn't late. Graham paused. What? I wasn't late, I repeated. I arrived at the hotel at 2 p.m. At 2:17 p.m., I was locked in the back of house service corridor C storage closet. The door was bolted from the outside. I called you 3 times. The first time you didn't answer. The next 2, your phone was off. I texted Chloe. She saw the message and didn't reply. Graham's expression didn't change, but his right hand, the one resting on the doorframe, tightened slightly. Locked in a storage closet? That's impossible. What is wrong with the venue staff? I'll have my assistant file a complaint tomorrow. Chloe, the planner, replied to me 40 minutes later. She said, Graham said you were touching up your makeup and told us to start the rehearsal without you. I looked at him. The motion sensor light in the hallway flickered off, leaving us in the dim glow of the entryway light. Graham's face was half in shadow. He was silent for 3 seconds. Chloe must have misunderstood me, he said. Zoe, that's not important. Not important? Yes, not important. His voice grew firmer, tinged with impatience. What's important is that you stormed off in front of everyone today. Do you have any idea how that looked? Claire called me 6 times asking what happened. Mark thought we broke up. Did we not? A muscle in Graham's jaw twitched. Then he laughed. Not a real laugh, but that, here you go again, laugh. Zoe. He sighed, crossing his arms. Can you not make a federal case out of everything? Lily helps with a rehearsal, and you want to call off the wedding? Don't you think that's a little... He stopped, searching for the right word. To dramatic? The ring, I said. What? The ring you put on her finger, I said. The emerald-cut platinum, engraved with eternal. The one I helped you design at Tiffany's 3 months ago. The one you said was my wedding surprise. Graham's eyelid twitched. It was so slight, I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't been watching him for 5 years. It was a prop, he said. A prop. Yes, a prop for the rehearsal. We couldn't just use an empty hand. I grabbed the first one I could find. You grabbed a 3-carat custom Tiffany ring? Zoe. His voice dropped, and he took a step forward. I could smell his cologne, the Tom Ford oud wood I had picked out for him. You're not thinking clearly right now. I get it, but just think about it. If Lily and I really had something going on, why would I still be marrying you? Why would I drop a fortune and spend 3 months planning this wedding? He reached out to touch my shoulder. I stepped back. His hand hung in the air for a moment, then he casually retracted it and shoved it in his pocket. You don't believe me, he said. It wasn't a question. I didn't speak. Fine, he nodded. Let me ask you this. What you saw today, Lily, on stage, in a white dress, what do you think that was? What do you think I was doing? Exchanging rings with another woman at my own wedding rehearsal. In front of 30 people? Do you think I'm insane? His voice was steady, even carrying a hint of injury. Zoe, use your head. If I really wanted to pull something, would I choose to do it on that stage, in front of all my boys and my family? I looked at him. He had a point. If you analyzed it with pure logic, a person wouldn't choose the most public, easily exposed setting to conduct a betrayal. This was Graham's playbook. For 5 years, every time I raised a red flag, this is how he'd handle it. With logic, with counter-arguments, with, does that even make sense to you? Until I felt like I was the one who was being paranoid. Every time, I backed down. Because he was right. Logically, it didn't make sense. The ring on her hand, I said. Call her right now and have her give it back. Graham's jaw tightened. Zoe, the ring is right here, he said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. He opened it. The emerald gleamed under the entryway light. I already got it back, see? It's here. It was always yours. He held the box out to me. The wedding is still on for tomorrow. We'll pretend today never happened. I'll talk to Lily, tell her to establish some boundaries in the future, okay? I stared at the ring. 3 carats, platinum, eternal. 3 months ago at Tiffany's, the cold metal of the sizing rings against my skin. Graham holding my other hand, his thumb stroking the back of it. Wear it every day, he had said then. So everyone knows you're mine. Now, this ring had been on another woman's hand. Another woman's body heat had seeped into the metal. You said she was helping with the rehearsal, I began. Yes. Does the rehearsal require you to kiss her? Graham's hand tightened, the velvet box creaking under his grip. What? You lifted her veil. You kissed her, I said. Someone in the crowd shouted, the groom may now kiss the bride. And you kissed her. His Adam's apple bobbed. Silence. 1 second. 2. 3. That was part of the walkthrough. He finally said, a rehearsal is meant to go through the entire order of events. What's the point otherwise? Zoe, you can't throw it all away over a… Fine, I interrupted. You said it's part of the walkthrough, right? So at the wedding tomorrow, you'll also kiss the bride. Of course. Then you've already had your practice run today. Graham opened his mouth. No sound came out. I watched him, this man I had known for 5 years. For the first time, his expression showed a crack. Not guilt. It was the panic of being caught on a technicality. But it only lasted a second. He took a deep breath, placed the velvet box on the console table by the door. Zoe, his tone changed, grew cold. What is it you really want? I rushed over here to bring you dinner, to explain things, to bring the ring back. What more do you want me to do? Get on my knees and beg? He stepped forward, no longer trying to touch me, just looking down at me. Lily is like a little sister to me. We grew up together. She flew all the way from London to be at my wedding. Helping with the rehearsal was a solid favor. And you're going to throw a fit and nuke our relationship over it? Don't you think… He paused, choosing his words carefully. That you're being a little toxic? When that word landed, my body had no reaction. No shaking hands, no racing heart, no urge to cry. Just a light, certain thing clicking into place in my chest. She was just standing in for you, Graham's voice continued, softening, as if he felt he'd been too harsh and was now trying to backtrack. There's no need to hold a grudge. Zoe, think about it. We've been together for 5 years. 5 years. When have I ever done you dirty? I looked at him. His eyes were sincere. His voice was gentle. Every word he said was logical and reasonable. If it were the me from 3 hours ago, the me who hadn't been locked in that closet, I might have believed him. Are you done? I asked. Graham froze. Zo? You said Lily flew in from overseas for the wedding. Yes. Did you book her ticket? Graham's pupils contracted. What? June 3rd. Your credit card statement. British Airways, BA 113. London Heathrow to JFK, first class. Passenger. Lily Bennett. I said. On the authorized user card, the one you got for her. The motion sensor light in the hall came on again. A neighbor must have stepped out of the elevator. The light flooded in from behind Graham, illuminating the strained calm on his face. But his jaw was clenched, and a vein was pulsing at his temple. You audit my statements? I don't have to, I said. The spending alerts for that authorized user card are pushed to my phone. You forgot? The primary account for that card is tied to my cell number. You asked me to help you set it up 2 years ago. He didn't speak. Do you have any other explanations? Graham just stood there. His hands pulled out of his pockets, then went back in. He did this twice. Then he scoffed. Fine, I booked the ticket, he said. Lily is a young woman, flying back from across the pond. What's wrong with me upgrading her ticket? She's like a little sister to me. Right, a sister. You book first-class international tickets for your sister. You open an authorized user credit card for your sister. She's studying abroad. It's not convenient for her with the exchange rates. I was just helping out. The authorized user card you got for your sister, I cut in, has had over $35,000 charged to it in the last 3 months. Graham's mouth snapped shut. His Adam's apple bobbed once. I continued. January 15th, Harrods, $12,000. February 2nd, Selfridges, $7,000. March 18th, a jewelry purchase from Graf, $20,000. With each number I recited, his posture grew more rigid. Do you want me to keep going? Enough. His voice was a low growl. Zoe, what exactly are you accusing me of? I looked at him. For 5 years, I had looked at this face. The vein at his temple when he was angry. The left laugh line deeper than the right. The unblinking eyes when he lied. Right now, his eyes were blinking. Once. Twice. 3 times. I have nothing more to say. I pulled the door back halfway. Take the soup with you, and take the ring. Zoo, the wedding tomorrow is cancelled. I'll notify the guests. Zoo, you just need to notify Lily, I said. Tell her the rehearsal is over. She doesn't need to stand in for me anymore. I shut the door. In the final moment before it closed, I saw Graham's hand raise, as if to push the door, or to grab something, but his hand stopped in midair. The deadbolt clicked. I leaned against the door. There was no sound from the hallway. No knocking, no shouting, no footsteps. 1 minute. 2. Then, footsteps, very light, very slow, walking toward the elevator. The elevator dinged open and closed. I uncurled the fist I had been clenching. 4 deep, crescent-shaped marks were pressed into my palm. One of them had drawn a pinprick of blood. I walked to the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and held my hand under the cold water. The blood dispersed, swirling down the drain. The phone rang in the living room. I didn't look. I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. My makeup was a complete mess. Eyeliner smudged to my cheekbones, lipstick a faint ring around the edges of my lips. I grabbed a cotton pad and started wiping it all away. Halfway through, I stopped. The face in the mirror was half clean, half covered in ruined makeup. It looked like 2 different people. One was the Zoe from before today. The other was the me from after. I tossed the cotton pad in the trash and picked up my phone. It wasn't a call from Graham. It was a text from Simon. Offer confirmed. The partners here have approved the contract. We'll send it to your email next week. Need me to have someone from HR connect you with a broker for housing in London? I typed 2 words. Yes, thanks. Then I opened my contacts and pulled up the wedding guest list. 123 people. I began sending messages, one by one. The wedding scheduled for tomorrow has been cancelled. My sincere apologies for the inconvenience. Best, Zoe. By the 30th person, Graham's sister Claire called. I answered. Zoe? What's this text you just sent? The wedding is cancelled? What's going on? Where's my brother? Did you guys get into a fight? Claire. I said. The wedding is cancelled. You can ask your brother for the reason. But everything is paid for tomorrow. The hotel, the florist, the band. What happened? Is it about the rehearsal today? Zoe? Lily? She was really just trying to be a team player. Lily. I repeated her name. Claire paused on the other end. Yeah, Lily. She's always been like family to us. You call her Lily, I said. She's 3 years older than you, and 2 years younger than me. Graham says she's like the little sister he grew up with. Yeah, she is. A person 3 years older than you, who is the little sister my brother grew up with. The line went quiet. Zoe. Claire's voice became smaller. Don't overthink it. My brother. He really. Claire. I cut her off. Du ma favor. What? The cancellation procedures for the venue tomorrow. Can you coordinate with the events manager for me? I'll cover any kill fees in the contract. You just need to run point with the hotel staff. Okay, thanks. I hung up and continued sending messages. The 31st, the 32nd, the 33rd. When I got to the 58th, a new message popped up on my screen. From Graham. You're really texting guests the wedding is cancelled? Zoe, have you lost your mind? Do you have any idea the fallout from this? My parents are flying in first thing in the morning. Mark's client flew in specially from Hong Kong for this. You cancel now. How does that make me look to my network? If you have a problem with what happened today, we can talk. You can't go nuclear like this. I read the texts, then swiped away the notifications and continued sending my own. The 59th. The 60th. Another message popped up. Fine. You want to negotiate terms? Tell me what you want me to do. Cut off all contact with Lily? Done. You want me to tell her off in person? I'll do it. I'll agree to whatever you want. But you can't cancel the wedding. I stopped. I looked at that message for 10 seconds. I'll agree to whatever you want. He had said that phrase at least 20 times over the past 5 years. Every time I had a doubt, every time I expressed frustration, this was the final play. He would concede, I would come down, and everything would go back to the status quo. Then, the same thing would happen again. I didn't reply. I continued sending messages. The 61st. The 62nd. By the time I sent the 123rd text, it was 1 a.m. I had over 100 unread messages. Most were replies from guests, shock, concern, gossip, or a simple, "Okay, got it." Graham's messages had stopped at 11:40 p.m. The last one was, "Zoe, sleep on it. I'll come by your place tomorrow." I put my phone down and walked over to the hanger where the dress hung. I looked at the spot on the neckline where the pearl was missing. The loose thread stuck out like a small wound. I touched the broken thread, then took the dress off the hanger. I folded it carefully and placed it back in its garment bag. I zipped it up, pushed it to the very back of my closet, and closed the door. The next morning at 8 a.m., I was sitting at my home office desk. Spread out before me was my architectural firm's project schedule for the third and fourth quarters. The contract from Arup in London hadn't arrived yet, but I needed to map out the handovers for my 3 active projects. The doorbell rang. I didn't move. It rang a second, then a third time. Then, the sound of a key turning in the deadbolt. I looked up. Graham had a spare key to my apartment. The door opened. He stood in the entryway, holding a brown paper bag. I recognized the logo. It was from the artisan bakery down the block I frequented. "You didn't eat breakfast," he said. He walked in, placed the bag on the kitchen island, and then saw the project schedule spread out in front of me. His steps faltered. "You're working?" "Yes." "Zoo, we need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about. You literally texted everyone last night that the wedding was off," he said, his voice tightly controlled. "My mother called me at 6 a.m. this morning, asking if I'd been left at the altar. My dad's flight has already taken off. He'll only see the alert when he lands at JFK. Do you know the sheer embarrassment this is causing my family?" I didn't look up, continuing to mark up the schedule with a red pen. "Graham," I said, "your key." He paused. "What?" "The key in your hand. Leave it on the counter when you leave." He didn't move. "Zoe, can you look at me when you talk?" I put down my pen and looked up at him. He was wearing a simple, clean white crewneck tee. He looked like he had just showered. His hair was still slightly damp. There were faint dark circles under his eyes. "You didn't sleep well," I said. "I didn't sleep at all." "Let's talk," he said. "I didn't handle yesterday well," he began, his voice much softer than last night. "I shouldn't have let Lily go on stage while you were missing. I admit, it was bad optics. I didn't think it through." He sat down on a bar stool across from me, his hands clasped on the marble counter. "But Zoe, that's not a reason to blow up the wedding. We've been together for 5 years. 5 years. Are you really going to throw that all away over one misunderstanding? You said last night you'd agree to whatever I wanted." "I did. I want you to cancel Lily's authorized user card." His fingers tightened slightly. "Fine. I want you to wire the $35,000 she racked up on that card from your personal account to mine." His eyes blinked. "Why do you?" "Because the credit line for that card was drawn against our joint account." Graham's lips moved, as if to say something, but he swallowed it back. "Fine," he said. "Anything else?" "No." He looked at me. "That's it?" Do those two things and the wedding is back on? I didn't answer. Zoe, he said. I never said the wedding was back on. He leaned back, as if a gentle force had pushed him. Then why do you want the cash? That's none of your business. Are you going to do it or not? He stared at me for a long time. Then his hand went into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and he started tapping. I'm locking the card in the app right now. It's cancelled, he said. The $35K, I'm transferring it now. He turned the phone to show me the Chase confirmation screen. $35,000. Recipient. Zoe. Enter your Face ID. Wire it directly to my personal Chase account. You have the routing number. He tapped a few more times. Done. It's sent. He put the phone down and looked at me. Zoe. Now, can we act like adults and talk? Talk about what? About us. He leaned forward, his forearms on the island. I know you're pissed. You have every right to be. But you can't let your anger negate 5 years of our lives. We've built too much equity in this relationship. Did you see Lily before you came here? His words cut off. What? This morning, before you came over. Did you see her? Graham's gaze didn't waver. He looked straight at me and shook his head. No. Are you sure? I'm positive, Zoe. I swear to God. Your Audi pulled out of the parking garage of Lily's luxury high-rise at 7:15 a.m. this morning. His face changed. Not slowly. Instantly. Like someone had thrown a bucket of cold water on a plaster wall and a chunk of it just sloughed off. How did you? She leases a place at the Orchard in Tribeca, right? I said. Your license plate is GTC 8892. The garage exit of that building has an automated camera system. Residents can check the entry and exit logs on the building's amenity app. I didn't explain why I knew where she lived, or how I had access to the building's portal. I just looked at him. Graham's mouth opened and closed. His hands retreated from the counter and fell to his lap. I went to grab something, he said. I left a folder at her place. 7:15 a.m., you badged out of the garage, I said. What time did you badge in? He didn't answer. You left my place at 11 p.m. last night, I continued. Your last text to me was at 11:40, saying you'd come see me tomorrow. Then you went to Lily's. I stood up. Graham, you didn't come here to talk to me. He looked up at me. You came here to see if I was still manageable. His Adam's apple bobbed, like he was swallowing a golf ball. Zoo, the key. He didn't move. Leave the key on the counter, I said, and lock the door behind you. I grabbed my iPad and my red pen, walked into my home office, and closed the door. As it shut, I heard a light clink of metal from the kitchen, the key hitting the marble, then heavy footsteps, the front door opening and closing. The office was dead quiet. I sat in my Herman Miller chair, the schedule pulled up on the screen. When my stylus touched the glass, I found I couldn't write. My hand was steady, my breathing was even, my Apple Watch showed my heart rate was normal. But my mind was a blank slate. That blankness lasted for about 30 seconds. Then my phone buzzed. An email from Simon at Arup. Contract attached via DocuSign. Please review. I clicked open the PDF and began to read the terms, line by line. Clause 1. Base location, London. Clause 2. Contract term. 24 months. Clause 3. Start date. July 1st. Today was June 17th. 14 days. I picked up my stylus and wrote the first note on my master schedule. June 19th. 12 days until Wheels Up. The project handovers at my firm, ZW Architects, were more complicated than I anticipated. 3 active projects. A mixed-use commercial development in Midtown, a cultural center renovation, and a private art museum in the Hudson Valley I'd been overseeing for 2 years. Each had my AutoCAD files, my spec sheets, my painstakingly negotiated zoning approvals. When I clicked into the museum file, my stylus stopped. This was the project Graham had sourced for me. One of his private wealth clients, a hedge fund guy turned art collector, wanted to build a private museum. 2 years ago, Graham had brought the guy to my studio. My fiancée is a rising star in the architecture world. You can't go wrong with her firm. That night, we walked back to my apartment. The crisp September air was rolling in. He draped his tailored blazer over my shoulders, his arm around my waist. "Stop aggressively pitching me to your clients," I'd said. "People are going to think I'm just cashing in on nepotism." He laughed. "Your talent needs nepotism?" "They took one look at your portfolio and were sold. I just made the intro." I believed him then. It was only later that I found out the client's first choice was a legacy firm. It took Graham taking him to 2 steakhouses and a Knicks game to convince him to switch to me. He never told me. I heard it by chance from the client's chief of staff. Graham said, "Just give Zoe a chance. She'll knock it out of the park." I closed the museum's handover file. In the CRM notes section, I typed, "Project background and client relationship details in appendix. Recommend partner Marcus Vance to take over point of contact." Nothing more. My phone lit up. Not Graham. It was my junior associate, sending a Slack message. "Zoe, the final client presentation for the Cultural Center is next Wednesday. Are you still leading it? Or should I tell Marcus to reassign it?" I typed back, "I'm leading it. It'll be my swan song." After hitting send, I flipped my phone face down on the desk. The home office was quiet. Framed on the walls were architectural photos of projects I'd delivered over the years. Some were finished build-outs, others were 3D renderings. The one on the far right was a community library completed last year. Exposed concrete and reclaimed wood, with natural light pouring through a massive skylight onto the reading tables. The day the ribbon was cut on that project, Graham came to pick me up. He waited outside in his Audi for 40 minutes, because I was inside with the general contractor, doing the final punch list. When I walked out, he was leaning against his car, scrolling on his phone. He looked up, slipped the phone into his pocket. "Happy with it? It's solid. The angle of the skylight tracks the sun even better than the models predicted." Then it was worth the overtime. He opened the passenger door for me. "Get in. I'm taking you to catch. You worked through lunch again." "How did you know?" "Your associate snitched." I got in. Before he hit the push to start, he leaned over and wiped a smudge of drywall dust from my cheekbone with his thumb. "My future wife is a genius," he said, "but she has zero work-life balance." I had laughed and swatted his hand away. Now, thinking back, I could still feel the phantom weight of his thumb on my cheek. It was light, natural, like muscle memory. Maybe he did it for Lily too. I stood up and poured myself a glass of iced water. It was freezing, and I could feel it slide all the way down to my stomach. In my filing cabinet was a folder I'd never gotten around to digitizing. It was full of tangible memories from Graham over the last 5 years. Not jewelry, just post-its, sushi takeout receipts, Broadway ticket stubs. I opened it. On top was a yellow sticky note. His handwriting was all caps, architect style, but I recognized it. "Soup in the fridge, nuke for 2 minutes. Don't pull an all-nighter. Your future husband." The date was March 14th of this year. That was the night I was at the studio hand-sewing the pearls on my dress until 2 a.m. When I unlocked my door, the living room lamp was on. He was passed out on my CB2 sofa. SportsCenter on mute. This note was on the coffee table, next to a bowl of pho covered in saran wrap. I had unwrapped it and eaten it cold. March 14th. His Amex statement showed a $20,000 charge from Graf on March 18th. 4 days apart. The night he left me soup was only 4 days before he dropped 20 grand on diamonds for Lily. I put the note back. Underneath was a boarding pass stub. From last November, when we flew down to Miami together. "Zoe, you're burning out," he'd said. "Let's get away and unplug." 3 days, 2 nights. We stayed at the one hotel in South Beach, slept in, walked the boardwalk in the afternoons, ate stone crab at Joe's at night. On our last night, we sat on our oceanfront balcony. He'd had a few craft cocktails and was leaning back, staring out at the Atlantic. "Zoo? Have you ever thought about what our retirement looks like? What does it look like?" "Just this." He reached over, his fingers lacing through mine. Sitting together, not checking emails. Just, this is enough. I had rested my head on his shoulder. The humid sea breeze was salty and warm. His shoulder was broad, his body heat radiating through his vintage tee. That was last November. Where was Lily then? I didn't know. I had never thought to check his locations or statements, because I believed him when he said Lily was just a family friend. Because I believed him when he sat on that balcony in Miami and said, "This is enough." Maybe he meant it in that specific moment. But meaning it in a vacuum isn't the same as meaning it forever. I closed the folder and shoved it to the back of the drawer. Then I went back to migrating the CAD files for handover. June 20th. The chairman for the Cultural Center board called my cell. "Zoe, for next Wednesday's board presentation, will you be driving the deck? The board was highly impressed with your initial bid and specifically requested that you present the final schematics yourself. I'll be running point." Fantastic. Oh, by the way, Zoe. Graham shot me an email saying he wanted to attend our annual gala next week. Would you mind RSVPing for him? We've got a seat reserved at your table. My fingers paused on my keyboard. Graham reached out to you. Yeah, late last week. He said he wanted to check out the project's milestones. After all, he was the guy who put us in touch. Last week. That was the week of June 13th. The week before the wedding. At that time, he was still debating seating charts with me, still asking if the tailor finished my dress, still sending me thinking of you texts from his office. And simultaneously, he was back-channeling my clients, securing his VIP access to their events. Zoe, you still there? I am, I said. I won't be passing along any messages regarding the gala. You should have your assistant loop in with him directly. Oh, understood. I'll confirm with Graham on my end then. I hung up the phone and sat motionless for a minute. Then I opened my MacBook and logged into my firm's Salesforce dashboard. On the Art Museum's client profile, under the lead source field, there was a tag. Referral. Graham Turner. I hit backspace and deleted the tag. Not out of spite, but because from the initial sketches to the final steel reinforcements, every line was drawn by me. Every red line revision was my 3 a.m. hustle. Every client pushback was mine to manage. The intro was just an intro. The 2 years of grind that followed had zero to do with him. But his name had been parked there in the CRM, like a watermark, a constant reminder to the partners that Zoe's flagship project was landed through her fiancé's golf buddies. I closed Salesforce. My phone lit up again. This time, it was Graham. An iMessage, not text, but an image. I tapped it. It was a photo of a bouquet of flowers, white lilies of the valley, wrapped in artisanal brown paper, sitting on a welcome mat. I recognized the mat. It was outside my apartment door. The text underneath read, "Left them at your door. You love lilies of the valley." I love lilies of the valley. That's true. 4 years ago, during spring, we were walking through the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. I stopped for a long time at their display. He asked me what my favorite flower was. I said lily of the valley. Low-key, understated, but incredibly fragrant. He remembered. Every May since, during their short season, he would drop a fortune at a boutique florist and have a bouquet on my kitchen counter. Now he was leaving them in the hallway. Like the past 4 years. Like it was just a regular Tuesday. I didn't reply. I locked my screen and kept working. But my eyes scanned the same paragraph on the zoning report 3 times without absorbing a single word. My brain was hijacked by lilies of the valley. Hijacked by the montage of him buying them for me, year after year. Sometimes he picked them up himself from the flower market in Chelsea. Sometimes he used TaskRabbit. Once, he flew back from a conference in Chicago with a small potted lily of the valley stashed in his carry-on. He said he saw it at a pop-up and knew I'd want it. That plant later died. I forgot to water it. He didn't make a big deal out of it. He just said, "It's fine. We'll grab another one next season." Next season. He threw that phrase around so easily, as if life was an endless series of do-overs. But some deadlines are hard stops. I took a deep breath. As I exhaled, a spot in my chest cramped. Not my heart, but somewhere deeper. As if a zip tie had been yanked tight around my ribs. I walked into my master bathroom and locked the door. I leaned over the vanity, hands gripping the cool quartz, head bowed. The woman in the mirror looked wrecked. Bags under the eyes, chapped lips, hair thrown into a messy claw clip. For 5 years. From the time I walked out of Columbia grad school until now, from 23 to 28, I gave him my prime years. No, not gave. I built my life inside his framework. My life was littered with his touchpoints. My portfolio had his referrals. My fridge had his takeout. My console table had his lilies of the valley. My entire life was a high-rise constructed around him. He was the foundation, the steel beams. Every load, bearing wall was tied back to him. Now, I was scheduling a controlled demolition, not to implode the building and start from scratch in the rubble, but to systematically remove each structural support he provided, one by one, to see if the building could stand on its own. I closed my eyes. The chill of the quartz seeped into my palms. 30 seconds. I opened my eyes, splashed cold tap water on my face, dried off with a towel, and walked back to my home office. I opened my Gmail. I had already replied to Simon. Contract signed and attached. By the way, I saw the RFP for that urban regeneration competition in East London this July. I know the team is pitching it. I read the brief. I downloaded the PDF brief. A decommissioned industrial zone in East London. Over 3 million square feet. A massive mixed-use master plan. This was the exact kind of public-facing architecture I'd been dying to do. During my 5 years in New York, I was boxed into designing vanity projects for ultra-high net worth clients. In Graham's private equity circle, architecture was an asset class, a tax write-off. Nobody gave a damn about the urban fabric or how the space served the community. I gave a damn, but I never chased it. Because Graham didn't want me taking roles that required heavy international travel. Because the most innovative public sector projects were often overseas or across the country. Because every time an opportunity knocked, he would say, "Zoe, we've just established our baseline here. Can we just ride it out a little longer? Your time will come." The future. His favorite moving target. In the future. When we tie the knot, you can design whatever you want. In the future, when my fund closes this round, we'll travel. In the future, when Lily graduates and stops relying on me so much, we'll have more privacy. The future was a scam. I read the brief cover to cover, then booted up AutoCAD and created a new workspace. File name: London East, Urban Renewal, ZW, Draft 1. Zoe Williams. Not Mrs. Turner, not Graham's +1. Not an accessory to someone else's portfolio. I began to draft the first vector line, June 21st. When I walked off the elevator and got to my apartment door, the lilies of the valley were still there. The boutique wrapping paper was crumpled, and the flowers were dead. The little white bells were browned and shriveled, the leaves brittle. Cut flowers don't survive long in an unventilated high-rise hallway. I bent down, picked them up, hesitated for a fraction of a second, then walked over to the trash chute and dropped them down the shaft. The apartment was dead silent. The Sub-Zero fridge was basically empty. I'd been living off Sweetgreen and Uber Eats. I washed a single water glass in the sink and stood in the kitchen, staring at the empty island. Graham loved cooking in this kitchen. When he cooked, he liked to roll up his sleeves, wearing the linen apron loosely tied. He'd brief me on his day while he prepped. Sometimes he'd ask me to grab a spice from the rack behind him, and as I reached around him, he'd subtly lean back just enough so my arm would brush against his waist. It was a micro-interaction, seemingly accidental every time. And every time, it gave me butterflies. I didn't have butterflies now. I was running a scenario. If I texted him right now, "Let's talk," what would his response time be? He would be here in 10 minutes. Absolutely. He would bring more soup, or flowers, or just show up in a casual hoodie, stand at the door with that patient, forgiving, "I know you're just blowing off steam" energy, and say, "Zoe, I'm here." And then? Then I would sit on the sofa and listen to his PowerPoint presentation of excuses. He would say Lily playing dress-up was a massive misunderstanding. He would say the rehearsal logistics were a fluke. He would say the Amex card was already shredded. He would swear on his life it would never happen again. He would be sincere. He was a masterclass in sincerity. And we would reconcile. Like we did every other fiscal quarter for the past 5 years. I would go back to drafting floor plans for his rich friends. He would go back to hyping up the future. And Lily would remain a line item on his balance sheet that I wasn't allowed to audit. And I would pretend the math checked out. Until the next market crash, I let go of the counter edge. I walked into my office and woke up my Mac. The draft of the London project was still rendering. I had only locked in the site topography and basic massing. I had a mountain of work left. I sat down and kept drafting. My iPhone buzzed on the wireless charger. I ignored it. It buzzed again. I flipped it face down and kept my eyes on the monitor. At 1 a.m., I hit CMD+S, put the Mac to sleep, and checked my screen. 3 notifications. The first, from my junior associate. Zoe, Marcus wants to sync tomorrow at 10 a.m. to review the cultural center handover docs. Does that time work? The second, from Simon. Reviewed the concept brief. Let me know your initial thoughts. I'll send a Teams invite with the London Steering Committee. The third, from Graham. Did you bring the flowers inside? I stared at those 6 words. He had no idea they were at the bottom of a dumpster. He was waiting for my read receipt. Just like he had expected my prompt replies for the past 5 years. I swiped his notification away. I texted my associate. 10 a.m. is perfect. See you then. I emailed Simon. Read it. We'll shoot over a bulleted list of thoughts in the AM. I left Graham on delivered. I tossed the phone onto my nightstand and hit the smart switch to kill the lights. In the blackout darkness, I could see a sliver of ambient light cutting across the ceiling. It was the street lamp bleeding through the gap in the blackout shades. Graham had installed those shades when I first signed the lease 5 years ago. He had completely botched the measurements. The left track was an inch too short. They never sealed completely. I had told him we should just order custom ones from Restoration Hardware. He said, "Nah, leave it. That way the morning sun acts as a natural alarm clock." I knew it was a cheap excuse to avoid admitting he measured wrong, but eventually, I realized I liked waking up to the actual sun. Right now, that gap was just letting in the sickly orange glow of a Manhattan street lamp. It wasn't the sun. I rolled over, turning my back to the window, and squeezed my eyes shut. A mental Polaroid flashed. Graham, head bowed, sliding the platinum ring onto Lily's finger, followed immediately by a second Polaroid. 3 months ago, sitting at Tiffany's, his head tilted at the exact same 20-degree angle, sliding the sizing ring onto my finger. A perfect copy-paste. My fist bunched up the thread count of my pillowcase. I wasn't mad. It was a much colder, more clinical realization. The feeling of discovering the foundational code you built your entire operating system on was full of malware. It wasn't just that he lied to me. It was that the reality I thought I inhabited was a simulation. 5 years. Over 1,800 days. Every day, I thought I was an equal partner in a real relationship. Every day, I thought the expensive dinners, the boutique flowers, the post-its, the thinking of you texts, the promises of the future were exclusive. Maybe they were genuine in the moment, but they weren't exclusive. They were real, but concurrently, there was Lily. Concurrently, he was swiping his black card for $20,000 in diamonds for another woman. Concurrently, he was pulling out of her Tribeca parking garage at 7 a.m. Concurrently, he was slipping my custom-engraved ring onto her hand. When you merge genuine affection with concurrent betrayal, the affection just becomes a highly sophisticated manipulation tactic. Because if he were a complete sociopath, packing a bag would be easy. But he had authentic moments. The foe was legitimately hot. The lilies were legitimately fresh. The nights he waited in his Audi for me were legitimately real. That's what made severing the tie agonizing. Because I wasn't walking away from a monster. I was walking away from a guy who was great to me, but also great to someone else. I was admitting I wasn't the VIP I thought I was. The perks I thought were mine alone were part of a corporate package. I relaxed my grip on the wrinkled pillowcase. I inhaled deeply, exhaled, did it 2 more times. Then I opened my eyes in the dark, grabbed my phone, and opened the Notes app. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Cultural Center handover with Marcus. 2 p.m. Digitize Hudson Valley Museum project files. Evening. Push London draft to Phase 2. Wednesday. Final pitch for Cultural Center board. By Friday, all ZW Architects handovers finalized. July 1st. JFK to Heathrow. I closed the app, put the phone back on the charger, and closed my eyes again. This time, Graham's face didn't render in my brain. Instead, I saw a 3 million square foot grid in East London, the exposed brick and heavy steel trusses of the industrial warehouses, and the blank space where I was going to build something entirely new. I don't know when I finally crashed, but when my alarm went off, the light filtering through the gap in the shades was pure sunlight. 6:30 a.m. I rolled out of bed, did my skincare routine, downed a Yeti tumbler of ice water, and fired up AutoCAD to keep drafting. I banged out 40 minutes of deep work, threw on a blazer, and walked out the door. As I passed the trash room down the hall, I noticed yesterday's lilies. They were shoved down the chute, gone forever. I didn't break my stride. I walked straight into the elevator. June 23rd. The day of the Cultural Center Board presentation. I stood at the head of the glass-walled conference room, clicking to the final ROI slide of my pitch deck. The 12-person board sat around the mahogany table, the chairman in the power seat. Zoe, the board is thoroughly impressed with this final package, Mr. Harrison said, standing up to shake my hand. Specifically your engineering solution for the cantilevered structure in the atrium. It modernizes the space while respecting the historical integrity of the facade. Your firm's technical chops are undeniable. Appreciate it, Mr. Harrison, I said, matching his firm grip. Moving into the execution phase, my partner, Marcus Vance, will be stepping in as the lead architect. He's fully up to speed on the specs. Mr. Harrison raised an eyebrow. You're off-boarding from the project? I have an international relocation starting in July. Oh man, our loss is their gain. He released my hand. By the way, Zoe, we're hosting the donor gala this Friday night at the Peak in Hudson Yards. We've already confirmed Graham's RSVP. We'd be thrilled if you both joined our table. A lot of heavy hitters are eager to network with you. My fingers paused as I closed my leather portfolio. Graham sent his RSVP? Yeah, end of last week. Shot my EA an email saying he wouldn't miss it. I'll be there, I said smoothly. But just for the record, Graham and I are no longer together. Mr. Harrison's corporate smile glitched for a half-second. Oh, my apologies. I assumed you two. I won the bid based on the merits of my design, I said, tucking the portfolio under my arm. It's completely independent of him. Look forward to seeing you Friday, June 25th. Friday. The donor gala was at a private club on the 101st floor in Hudson Yards. When I checked my coat, the main room was already buzzing with high-net-worth individuals and corporate sponsors. I had just grabbed a sparkling water from the bar when Mr. Harrison's chief of staff approached me. Zoe, Mr. Harrison requested you join him in the VIP lounge. Follow me. I trailed behind him. As we navigated past a cluster of velvet sofas, my peripheral vision caught a familiar silhouette, charcoal gray Tom Ford suit, no ring on his left hand. I had already couriered the velvet box back to his office. He was holding court, cocktail in one hand, his other arm resting casually across the back of the sofa, his fingers millimeters from the bare shoulder of the woman sitting next to him, Lily Bennett. She was wearing a silk slip dress, a blowout, minimal makeup. She looked fresh out of an Ivy League sorority. She held a flute of Veuve Clicquot, her manicured nail tapping the rim. She looked up at Graham and beamed. Graham was smiling down at her. They were in each other's personal space. I kept my eyes forward and walked right past them. For the next 40 minutes, I worked the VIP lounge, swapping business cards, talking zoning laws, floating potential joint ventures. It was high-level networking, strictly professional, until the heavy oak door swung open. Mr. Harrison, Graham's voice announced from the threshold, perfectly calibrated to project warmth and alpha status. Apologies for the delay. FDR traffic was a nightmare. He strode in, his eyes scanning the room, landing on me for a fraction of a millisecond before gliding past, as if I were a decorative lamp. Graham, glad you made it. Mr. Harrison stood up to do the bro hug. Grab a seat. Hey, you and Zoe. We're old friends, Graham interrupted smoothly, taking the leather armchair directly across the coffee table from me. His tone was casual, practiced. We're in the same professional circles, it communicated. Not. Last week she cancelled our wedding. Not. 10 days ago I was letting myself into her apartment with my spare key. Just. We run into each other. Graham seamlessly hijacked the room's energy, pivoting the conversation to interest rates, commercial real estate bubbles, and cap rates. He was charismatic, making everyone feel like the most important person in the room. No one directed questions at me. Every few minutes, a board member would turn to me and ask, Zoe, what's your read on that development? And before I could open my mouth, Graham would intercept. Zoe is a pure creative. She stays out of the weeds when it comes to the macroeconomic stuff. He was filibustering me, using a patronizing, protective tone, broadcasting to the room. She's just the talent. Leave the big boy numbers to the guys. I sipped my San Pellegrino and didn't challenge him. I was running a tally in my head, counting how many times he would speak on my behalf tonight. Strike one was the interest rate comment. Strike two was when a developer asked about ZW Architects' scaling plans. Strike three was when someone brought up the global RFP for the East London regeneration. On strike three, I set my glass down on a coaster. Zoe, I heard rumors your firm is throwing a hat in the ring for that massive UK urban renewal project, a partner at a real estate trust asked. We are, I said. That's a mammoth undertaking. Over 3 million square feet, right? Zoe's boutique firm is incredibly focused on localized, bespoke domestic builds. Graham's voice sliced in like a scalpel. They're probably just testing the waters with international bids. Isn't that right, Zoe? He looked right at me, flashing a disarming smile, acting like he was just stating public facts. The executives in the room looked back and forth like they were watching a tennis match. I held his gaze. Actually, I've officially accepted a partnership role with Arup's London headquarters, I said, my voice projecting clearly across the room. I relocate on July 1st. Graham's smile didn't drop, but his right index finger, which had been tapping the armrest, froze. Oh? His voice feigned mild surprise, heavily managed. When did that get finalized? Must have slipped your mind to mention it. It wasn't on a need to, no basis for you. The VIP room went dead silent for 2 agonizing seconds. Mr. Harrison loudly cleared his throat. Arup! That's a massive global player! Huge congratulations, Zoe! The conversation immediately fragmented into safer topics. But I caught Graham's jaw flexing under his skin. He took a long pull from his scotch and didn't look my way again. At 9:30 p.m., the oak door creaked open. It was Lily. Her eyes were bloodshot, her nose slightly pink. She looked like she'd been crying in the restroom. She ignored the billionaires in the room and locked eyes with Graham. Graham, she said, her voice a fragile, nasal whisper. I'm feeling really dizzy. Can you get me an Uber? Every head in the room swiveled to Graham. Then to me. I sat perfectly still, holding my sparkling water. My face a neutral mask. Graham frowned. He shot me a micro glance, calculating the collateral damage. Then he turned his full attention to Lily. What's going on? Migraine. I think the champagne triggered it. Lily leaned against the heavy doorframe, swaying like a wilting flower. Surge pricing is crazy and I can't get a black car. It's pouring outside. Graham stood up. I'm going to run her home, he announced to the executives, his tone commanding and dutiful. Can't have her navigating the city alone. Then he looked at me. Zoe, you can grab a cab back to your place. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a dismissal. I looked back at him. His expression was flat, telegraphing a clear message. Don't make a scene. Be cool. Sure, I said. Graham nodded, satisfied, and strode toward the exit. As he passed Lily, he instinctively wrapped an arm around her waist to stabilize her. Lily melted into his side, leaning her weight against his chest. As they shuffled out into the hallway, Lily peered over his shoulder. She looked straight at me. It was a fleeting glance, but the subtext was loud. It wasn't a triumphant smirk, it was a receipt. She was confirming that I was watching. She was confirming that I was sitting on a leather chair, stranded, while my ex-fiancé carried her out. The door clicked shut. The tension in the room was suffocating. Someone awkwardly cleared their throat. A guy checked his Rolex. No one made eye contact with me. Mr. Harrison's chief of staff leaned in and whispered, "Zoe, do you want me to have the valet pull a car around for you?" "I appreciate it, but no," I said, standing up. "I've got an early morning." I shook Mr. Harrison's hand, thanked him for the invite, and he awkwardly walked me out of the VIP lounge. "Zoe, seriously, don't stress about the optics in there. We are absolutely thrilled with your firm's work." "Thanks, Mr. Harrison. Have a good night." I walked out into the main corridor. It was long and empty. It really was pouring outside. Rain battered the floor-to-ceiling glass, turning the Manhattan skyline into a blurred, neon smear. I walked to the elevator bank and hit the down arrow. While I waited, I pulled out my iPhone, opened my Notes app, and added a bullet point. "Have Carla, lawyer, run an audit on Graham's conflicts of interest regarding ZW Architects. Subpoena the finder's fee agreement for the Hudson Valley Museum." The elevator arrived with a soft ding. As the steel doors closed, a roar of laughter echoed from the main ballroom. I hit the button for the lobby. June 26th, Saturday morning. "Zoe, I found the paper trail on the conflict of interest you flagged." My attorney, Carla, said, sliding a manila folder across the mahogany conference table. "The Hudson Valley Museum project Graham referred 2 years ago. He executed a finder's fee contract with the client's holding company." "What's the math?" "A 15% cut of your firm's total design fee, billed as a business consulting commission through an LLC registered under his name." I opened the folder. The total design fee for my firm was $1.2 million. 15% was $180,000. Did my firm's accounting department have this on file? According to the audit, absolutely not. It was a side letter agreement between the client and Graham's LLC. Completely bypassed your firm's ledger. So, he pocketed $180,000 for leveraging my IP and kept it off the books. Correct, Carla said, tapping her pen. And legally, this is radioactive. If ZW Architects' operating agreement has a standard conflict of interest provision, it does, I said. Article 17. No partner's immediate family or domestic partner may extract undisclosed kickbacks from firm-retained clients. Then this is a material breach. We have grounds to force the client to sever the contract with Graham's LLC and disgorge the commission. I closed the folder. Don't disgorge the cash. Carla stopped tapping her pen. Excuse me? I don't want the money clawed back, I said. I want a hard legal firewall. Meaning what exactly? I want a drafted, bulletproof legal severance, stating ZW Architects has zero ongoing business ties to Graham Turner. Any and all referral statuses tied to him are legally nullified. All future IP and billings have nothing to do with him. I want his name scrubbed from our CRM and every contract we hold. Carla studied me for a few seconds. I can draft the cease and desist, but are you positive? The museum client might get spooked and pull funding. The client signed the checks because my blueprints were flawless, not because Graham bought him a steak. Understood. Carla clicked her pen. I'll have a draft in your inbox by Monday morning. Anything else to hunt down? Yeah, I said. Run a deep dive on any other shadow equity ties between Turner Capital and my firm's client roster. Specifically, I want to know if his private equity fund holds any minority stakes in the real estate portfolios we've been designing. Carla's eyes widened slightly. You think the rabbit hole goes deeper? I don't think anything, I said, standing up. I just want the full data set. I grabbed my bag. I'll look for your email on Monday. Got it. Zoe, Carla called out, her lawyer persona slipping for a second. Are you holding up okay? I looked back at her. I'm executing a plan, I said. This is what okay looks like right now. June 26th. Saturday afternoon. I was locked in my home studio, grinding on the East London CAD files. The site analysis was locked in, and the structural massing was getting granular. My phone rang. Graham. I let it go to voicemail. 10 seconds later, an iMessage popped up. Zoe, about last night. My bad. Lily was having a severe reaction. I dropped her off and went straight to my condo. Didn't get a chance to text. Did you get an Uber okay? The weather was brutal. Another text bubbled up. By the way, if you need any back channeling with Mr. Harrison's board moving forward, just say the word. 3 texts. The tone. Chill. Supportive. Completely unbothered. As if he hadn't abandoned me in a room full of VPs. As if he hadn't paraded out with his arm wrapped around his little sister. I didn't type a response. I kept drafting. 15 minutes later, my screen lit up again. Zoe, you slammed? Was that comment about Arup just posturing? When did you sign that? Why was I completely out of the loop? We seriously need to sit down over coffee. Are you actually moving to the UK next month? I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and flipped it over. On my monitor, I was designing the stress joints between the original Victorian cast iron framing and the new poured concrete. I engineered a steel plate to act as a buffer. The old architecture and the new architecture wouldn't touch. There was a deliberate, engineered gap. A gap where time could pass. Natural light from a skylight would channel down into that gap, highlighting the exact boundary where the past ended and the future began. June 27th. Sunday. I was building a packing spreadsheet for London when the intercom buzzed. I checked the video feed. Not Graham. It was his younger sister, Claire. I buzzed her up and opened my door. She stood in the hallway, clutching a shopping bag, looking like she was walking to the gallows. Hey Zoe, she said, her voice tight, dropping her usual nickname for me. Do you have 5 minutes? I stepped aside. She sat on the edge of the sofa. My brother asked me to drop this off, she murmured, gesturing to the bag. He figured if he sent a courier you'd refuse delivery. I didn't even glance at the bag. Did you come here just to play FedEx for him? No, she said defensively. I actually wanted to check on you. Zoe, is it true you're relocating to London? Yes. Seriously? Her face crumpled into a complicated knot of emotions. So you and Graham. It's actually a done deal? She stared at her sneakers, twisting her rings. Zoe, I know what he did was messed up. The wedding disaster, the whole Lily situation. I get it. I just looked at her. But, there is no but, I said sharply. She clamped her mouth shut. The silence stretched until she tried a different angle. Zoe, my brother. He's spiraling. His associates said he's completely checking out of partner meetings. He got into a screaming match with Mark yesterday. He's gutted. What is he gutted about? Losing you. I walked over to the kitchen island and poured myself a glass of iced water. I took a slow sip. Claire, I said, keeping my voice level. On Friday night, in a VIP lounge filled with billionaires and my direct clients, your brother ordered me to call myself a cab while he physically escorted Lily out. The entire room watched him leave with his arm around another woman. And then they watched me sit there, completely humiliated. Claire's face drained of color. What exactly do you think he's gutted about? I set the glass down hard on the marble. Losing me? Or losing the trophy fiancé who refuses to play her part and suffers in silence? Zoo, come on, take the bag with you, I commanded. And tell your brother he's out of proxies. If he wants to plead his case, he can march up here and ring the doorbell himself. But I don't promise I'll open the door. Claire scrambled up, grabbed the bag, and practically jogged to the door. Hand on the knob, she paused. Zoe, you were never this ruthless before. I met her eyes. Before I didn't have all the data. She opened her mouth, but couldn't find a rebuttal. She walked out. When the deadbolt clicked into place, I stood in the quiet apartment, my fingertips tracing the condensation on my water glass. You were never this ruthless before. She wasn't wrong. The old Zoe would have scheduled a sit-down to hear Graham's defense. The old Zoe would have bought the she's just a kid narrative. The old Zoe would have caved the second he showed up with artisan bread and a sad face. The old Zoe would have put her career on ice for the promise of the future. The old Zoe was a compliant tenant in the building he owned. The wrecking ball was already swinging. I finished my water, walked back to my monitor, and opened the AutoCAD file. I added a text box to the joint detail diagram. Clean severance. Zero overlap. June 28th, Monday. Carla's email hit my inbox at exactly 9 a.m. I clicked the PDF attachments. The drafted severance and cease and desist. 12 dense pages of legalese. I read every single clause. Airtight, aggressive, leaving zero loopholes for ambiguity. On page 4, there was an addendum. Carla had struck gold. Graham's private equity fund, Turner Capital, held an 8% shadow equity stake in the shell company that owned the Hudson Valley Museum site. Which meant, not only did Graham skim a cash commission off my introduction, but his fund directly profited from the massive valuation spike generated by my architectural design. And my blueprints had driven the property's appraised value up by 40% over the last 24 months. I forwarded the secure PDF to my firm's managing partner, Marcus Vance. I added a quick memo. I need the glass conference room this Wednesday at 2 p.m. for a hard stop of 60 minutes. He replied in under a minute. Booked. What's the agenda? I typed back. Internal audit and restructuring of project-related equity. He didn't push for details. I pulled up my Google Calendar. Wednesday, June 30th. Board-level firm audit. Thursday, July 1st. Wheels up to Heathrow. 3 days left. I picked up my iPhone and texted Simon at Arup. Final phase pitch deck for the East London RFP is complete. Pushing the heavy files to your secure server now. Also, my flight got bumped up. I'll be landing Thursday afternoon, July 1st. Simon texted back, files received. Our relocation team locked down a luxury flat for you, about a 5-minute walk from the London office. Stoked to get you in the building. I locked my phone. The morning sun was beaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a sharp beam of light across my oak desk. It sliced right across the back of my hand, leaving half my skin in shadow, half in blinding light. I shifted my chair so my entire hand was in the sun, and I kept working. June 30th, Wednesday, 10 a.m. 5 people were sitting around the bespoke oak table in ZW Architects' main conference room. My 2 senior partners, the CFO, and Marcus Vance. I stood at the head of the room, iPad in hand, connected to the smartboard. I'm going to keep this brief. We need to execute an internal audit regarding undisclosed equity conflicts on a legacy project. I swiped my iPad. The smartboard displayed a high-res scan of Graham's finder's fee contract. The Hudson Valley Museum build was referred by a third party, Graham Turner. The referring party and the client executed a private side letter agreement, netting a 15% skim off our gross design fee, totaling $180,000. This capital never hit our firm's ledger and was legally hidden from all acting partners. The room went dead silent. You could hear the hum of the HVAC. To add on to that, I swiped again. Graham Turner's private equity vehicle, Turner Capital, holds a shadow 8% equity stake in the client's shell corporation. Post-build, our architectural IP spiked the asset's valuation by 40%. One of the senior partners tossed his pen onto the table, leaning back in his Herman Miller chair. So, this guy didn't just siphon off a broker fee. He effectively used our pro bono value add to pump his own portfolio. Exactly. Which is a direct violation of Article 17 of our operating agreement, the other partner stated, pulling up the firm bylaws on his laptop. Correct. I swiped to the final slide, displaying the 12-page cease and desist drafted by Carla. My motion is as follows. 1. We immediately sever any and all referral relationships with Graham Turner or Turner Capital. 2. We legally compel the client to void the side letter agreement. 3. ZW Architects issues a binding legal statement affirming that all IP and future builds operate completely independent of Graham Turner's network. Marcus Vance nodded slowly. I'll second that motion. The other partners voiced their agreements in rapid succession. One last item, I said, tapping the smartboard off. I am relocating to London tomorrow. I've signed a partner track offer with Arup. All my project deliverables and handovers are locked in the server. Marcus has the decryption keys. Marcus stood up, buttoning his suit jacket, and walked over to me. Zoe, he said, extending his hand. Those buildings out there will always have your name on the plaque. That doesn't get erased. I appreciate that, Marcus. As I walked out of the glass conference room, my Apple Watch buzzed. A text from Carla. The legal hammer just dropped. Notice served to the client and to Turner Capital's general counsel. We also CC'd the SEC and FINRA to ensure his shadow equity violation goes on his permanent record. I replied, copy that. June 30th. 2 p.m. I was tossing my framed degrees and a few architectural awards into a U-Haul moving box at my desk when my junior associate Power walked into my office. Zoe, front desk just called. There's a guy downstairs demanding to come up. She looked panicked. It's Graham. I dropped my favorite Moleskine notebook into the box. Send him up. She blinked at me. Are you serious? The secondary conference room is empty, right? Stick him in there. Tell him I'll be right in. 3 minutes later, I pushed open the frosted glass door of the secondary conference room. Graham was sitting at the far end of the long table. He was wearing a black fitted tee and dark denim, no suit. It was the first time I'd ever seen him in his weekend clothes on a Wednesday afternoon. He looked like he'd been run over by a truck. The dark circles under his eyes looked bruised, and a heavy layer of stubble shadowed his jawline. He jolted up when I walked in. Zoe. His voice sounded like he'd swallowed glass. I pulled out a chair and sat down at the opposite end of the table. What the hell did your lawyers send my compliance department? He demanded, his voice low and vibrating. Turner Capital just got hit with a nuclear severance notice. And you CC'd the SEC and FINRA? Zoe, do you comprehend the fallout from that? I comprehend it perfectly. Once the SEC opens a formal investigation, my reputation in the private equity sector is completely torched. That sounds like a you problem. His hands gripped the edge of the conference table, his knuckles bone white. Zoe, just give me a number. He leaned forward, desperate. You want cash? The referral fee, I can rationalize it. It was a standard industry kickback the client offered. It wasn't malicious. That $180K, he trailed off. You embezzled $180,000 off my labor, I stated clinically. And your fund sat on 8% of the equity. My late nights made that property worth 40% more. What was your ROI on my sweat equity, Graham? He stared at me, mute. You don't have to run the numbers, I said. I don't want a buyout. What I wanted, I already secured. Which is what? Complete legal severance. He looked at me. The silence in the room stretched for an agonizing 7 seconds. Then he let out a laugh. Not his charismatic boardroom laugh. It was a hollow, manic sound. Zoe, don't you think this is a massive overreaction? His voice cracked, softening. I own my mistakes. I fumbled the wedding. I crossed boundaries with Lily. But you're dragging my fund in front of federal regulators. Do you know what my dad is going to say when he reads this filing? What the senior partners will do? When you paraded out of the Hudson Yards gala with Lily on your arm, in front of the very board members I report to, I countered, did you run a risk assessment on what they would think of me? His mouth snapped shut like a trap. That's totally different. It's the exact same data set. I pushed my chair back and stood up. Graham, you operate on a predictable algorithm. You push boundaries, and I'm programmed to absorb it. You drop off overpriced takeout, and I'm supposed to melt. You talk over me in meetings, and I'm supposed to smile. You walk out with your little sister, and I'm supposed to sit in the corner and wait for you to text me. I am deleting that algorithm today. Zoo, my flight to London is tomorrow, I said. The SEC takes about 14 business days to initiate a preliminary inquiry. In 2 weeks, your name will be permanently expunged from my firm's history. I turned toward the frosted glass door. Zoe Williams! His voice cracked like a whip, the pleading tone vanishing. You actually think your portfolio exists in a vacuum? I hand-delivered the Hudson Valley client. The cultural center chairman is my golfing buddy at Shinnecock. Your firm only survived its startup phase because I funneled my entire Rolodex to you. Your entire Rolodex? I paused, turning back slightly. He locked eyes with me, wielding the confidence of a guy playing his ace of spades. Every single whale, he declared. Zoe, if I hadn't subsidized your network, ZW Architects would have filed Chapter 11 inches year 1. The only reason you're standing in this Class A office space, the only reason Arup headhunted you, is because you have a killer portfolio, and I laid the foundation for every single brick. He pushed off the table and took 2 steps toward me. You can despise me. You can call off the wedding. But you cannot rewrite history and pretend that Zoe Williams would be anybody without Graham Turner. I studied him. He was incredibly arrogant. His posture was rigid, his chin jutted out. He genuinely believed he had backed me into a logical corner. Are you finished? I asked. He froze. You claim you funneled your entire network to me during the startup phase. I did. We landed 4 anchor clients that first year. I corrected, my voice deadly calm. A commercial high-rise, a tech startup headquarters, a private members club, and a Soho gallery gut renovation. Which of those did you source? His lips twitched. The high-rise and the private club. Fact check. 2, I said. Not every single whale. I closed the other 2 deals. My Columbia roommate connected me to the tech CEO, and the Soho gallery owner found my rendering on an architecture blog. His expression remained stony, but he subtly shifted his weight backward. Furthermore, I added, the developer for the commercial high-rise did a spread in Architectural Digest last quarter. He went on record stating he hired ZW Architects after reading a white paper I published on sustainable urban density. Your name didn't warrant a single mention in the entire spread. A muscle jumped violently in his jaw. Zoe, you can spin the narrative in your head all you want, convincing yourself I'm your creation, I said. But the SEC filing relies on empirical data. Your title was referral source, not principal architect. A referral source is easily swapped out. The IP is not. I pushed open the heavy glass door. When your name is scrubbed from my contracts, my buildings will still dominate the skyline. I looked at him dead in the eye. But when you're scrubbed from my contracts, what actual value do you bring to the table? I walked out into the bullpen and didn't look back. June 30th, 5 p.m. My team threw together an impromptu happy hour in the break room. Marcus Vance ordered a Momofuku milk bar cake. My junior associate bought me a massive bouquet of peonies. Zoe, my associate said, her eyes getting glassy. If you need anything stateside while you're in London, I'm a Slack message away. She hesitated, lowering her voice. Just a heads up. When Graham left, he just stood inside the elevator lobby for like 20 minutes. The doors kept sliding open and closed, and he just stared at the wall. The building concierge actually had to ask him to leave. I didn't react. Marcus walked over, handing me a slice of cake on a paper plate. Zoe, I reviewed your RFP submission for the London gig, he said, leaning against the counter. It's a masterclass, you guys are going to take the bid. I appreciate that. I'm not blowing smoke, he said, looking at me seriously. Your talent has always been top tier. It's just that previously, there was a guy standing in front of the spotlight, casting a shadow, so no one could see who was actually generating the wattage. I took the plastic fork he offered. June 30th, 8 p.m. The final cardboard box in my apartment was taped shut. I sat on a bar stool in my empty kitchen. Carla had sent a final Slack update. We just officially filed the civil lawsuit against his LLC in the New York Supreme Court. It's public record now. The final text of the night was from Simon at Arup. What time is your flight hitting the tarmac? I'll have a black car waiting at Heathrow. 2 p.m. takeoff from JFK, landing around 7 p.m. UK time. Save the budget, I'll just grab an Uber or take the Heathrow Express. Copy that. Shoot me a text when you clear customs. We've got a massive kickoff meeting on Friday. You should sit in. See you there. I locked my iPhone. In the master closet, the garment bag was still shoved in the far back corner. I pulled it out, unzipped the heavy plastic. The dress. the imported French lace, the 56 freshwater pearls. I had already snipped and tied off the thread where the single pearl was ripped away. It was my intellectual property. 3 months of late nights, 4 3D prototypes, a 4 a.m. drop of blood. It didn't belong to Graham, or to a deposit forfeited wedding at a fancy hotel. It was mine. I zipped the bag shut, hung it back up, and closed the door. July 1st. 11 a.m. I was sitting in the Delta Sky Club at JFK. My flight boarded at 1:15 p.m. My cell rang. Graham. I hit decline. An iMessage pushed through. Zoe, I know your flight is today. I'm at JFK. I'm standing at the security checkpoint. I just want to see you one last time. I'm begging you. Just 5 minutes. I tossed my phone into my Goyard tote and popped open my MacBook. Simon had emailed the slide deck for Friday's kickoff. I needed to script a tight elevator pitch for my intro. I started typing. My phone vibrated again. His sister. Claire. Zoe? My brother is having a panic attack at Terminal 4. He looks like a ghost. Can you please just walk out to the checkpoint and talk to him? I swiped the notification away and kept typing. At 1:45 p.m., I joined the priority boarding lane. Zoo. The voice came from my right, near the glass partition. I turned my head. Graham was standing on the land side of the TSA barrier. He didn't have a ticket. He couldn't breach security. His hands were gripping the chrome stanchion, his knuckles white. He looked exponentially worse than he had in the conference room. His designer polo was wrinkled. He was sweating, his hair unstyled. Zoe! He rasped again. The boarding line shifted forward. I rolled my carry-on a few feet. Are you actually doing this? His voice carried over the din of the terminal. It contained an emotion I had never heard from him before. Not rage, not corporate posturing, pure, unadulterated terror. I looked at him. His eyes were bloodshot. Not from a bender. From chronic insomnia. Zoe, I completely screwed up, he pleaded, ignoring the stares of the travelers around him. I was wrong about everything. The Lily situation, the shadow equity, the Hudson Yards gala, all of it. Name your terms. I'll sign whatever you want. You want me to get on my hands and knees in front of TSA, I will do it. Just don't get on that plane. The line moved again. You want a public apology? I'll draft a press release. His voice pitched up, frantic. You want me to step down from the fund? I'll resign today. I'll liquidate my shares and move to a flat in London with you. Zoe, say something. Look at me. I looked at him. I pulled my iPhone out of my tote, opened Safari to a specific bookmark, and held the screen up toward the glass partition. He squinted at the glare. On the screen was the public portal for NICEF. The header read, Summons and Complaint, Breach of Fiduciary Duty and Undisclosed Financial Conflict Involving Turner Capital and ZW Architects. Date filed, July 1st, today. The PDF link contained unredacted copies of his side letter contract, his commission totals, and the shadow equity data. Graham's face drained of blood in 3 seconds. You didn't... His voice splintered. It's live, I said flatly. The entire industry can access that. Yes, Zoe. This is going to obliterate my career. The SEC might even flag it. I'm aware. His hands slipped off the chrome stanchion. He stumbled back half a step, looking like he'd been gut-punched. Why? He whispered, his voice cracking. Do you hate me that much? The boarding line moved again. I dropped my phone back into my bag. This isn't about hate, I said, rolling my suitcase forward. It's about brand separation. Another step. You embedded yourself in my life for 5 years. My cap table, my social network, my industry clout, your fingerprints were on everything. Everyone in the New York scene viewed me as Graham Turner's fiancé first, and an architect second. The guy in front of me scanned his boarding pass. It was my turn. I pulled up my Apple Wallet and held my phone over the scanner. I turned my head and looked at Graham one final time. Not anymore. The scanner beeped green. I walked down the jet bridge. Behind me, his voice was thin. completely drowned out by the roar of the jet engines outside on the tarmac. Zoo. I didn't turn around. As the Boeing 777 lifted off, the Manhattan skyline shrank below the window. The billion-dollar skyscrapers turned into Lego blocks, the grid system into tiny lines. Then, a thick layer of stratocumulus clouds swallowed it all. I pushed my seat back. My phone was in airplane mode. In 7 hours, I'd be touching down at Heathrow. A different time zone. A different firm. A multi-million square foot project. Nobody in the UK would introduce me as Graham Turner's +1. Nobody would find his LLC buried in my project files. I closed my eyes. The final visual that glitched in my brain was his hands death-gripping the TSA barrier, knuckles white, desperately trying to anchor himself to an asset that had already been liquidated. Then that image, too, was wiped by the clouds. I slept the whole way across the Atlantic. July 19th. London. My 19th day operating out of a RUP. My standing desk faced a massive window overlooking the street. My monitors were littered with CAD files for the East London regeneration. We had won the RFP. The award letter dropped 3 days ago. My desk phone chimed. An internal UK extension. Zoe? The receptionist's British accent piped through the speaker. I'm ringing from the front desk. A Mr. Turner just walked in. He's asking if he could leave a priority package for you. Would you like me to send him up to your floor? My stylus froze on the Wacom tablet. Absolutely not. I am unavailable. Right then, shall I have him leave it with security? Tell him I am rejecting all deliveries. I slammed the receiver down and muted the ringer. When I logged off for the day, my new colleague, Liam, was waiting by the elevators. Zoe, mate. There's a bloke camped out on the pavement downstairs. He's been loitering there since morning coffee. Asked reception for you by name. You want me to flag building security? I walked over to the glass facade and looked down. On a wrought iron bench across the street sat a guy in a tailored coat, head buried in his hands. It was way too warm for a wool topcoat in July, but I knew the cut. Navy blue Loro Piana. I'd bought it for him at Bergdorf Goodman last winter. Graham. He had dropped weight. Even from 3 stories up, the tailored coat hung loose on his frame. Nah, let him sit, I told Liam, grabbing my bag. I'll just exit through the loading dock. July 21st. He was standing at the corner of my tube station when I walked to work. He spotted me and lunged a step forward, then froze. He didn't close the distance, just stood there, 50 feet away, tracking me with his eyes. He was clutching a branded insulated bag. The exact grey bag he used to carry my favorite takeout from Soho. He had packed it in his luggage. I pivoted on my heel and walked a different route. July 22nd. The third day. He was blocking my usual route back to my flat. He was leaning against a brick wall. This time, his hands were empty. As I briskly walked past, he spoke. Zoo, I didn't break my stride. Zoe, I know I'm the last person you want to see. I won't come any closer. I just needed visual confirmation that you were okay. I kept walking. You're losing weight, he called out. The food over here is wrecking your stomach, I bet. Graham. I stopped dead on the pavement, but didn't turn around. You've been staking out my office for 3 consecutive days. A beat of heavy silence. How did you know? My project managers saw you. Building security saw you. He didn't speak. You're doing this so the entire block knows you're out here playing the martyr. No, I swear to God Yes, you are. I finally turned and faced him. He was shockingly gaunt. His cheekbones jutted out sharply, his eyes hollow and ringed with purple. I didn't fly out here to demand another shot, he rasped, his voice raw. I just needed to tell you to your face. I know I screwed up. I know exactly the damage I caused. You have no idea, I said. He stopped breathing. You don't have a clue what any of this meant to me. Because if you possessed any actual self-awareness, you wouldn't have authorized that black card for Lily 3 years ago. You wouldn't have siphoned a kickback off my hustle 2 years ago. You wouldn't have gaslit me into thinking I was too dramatic every time I noticed a red flag. And on our literal wedding day, you wouldn't have had someone bolt me inside the utility closet. He physically recoiled, hitting the brick wall. The closet, Zoe, that wasn't me. Your planner texted me. Graham said you were touching up your makeup. Do you want me to pull up the iCloud screenshot? His lips compressed into a thin, bloodless line. Zoe, that was Lily. She went rogue. So Lily orchestrated it, I said coldly. And you were complicit. He didn't try to deny it. He curled his hands into tight fists, then slowly released them. I didn't physically stop her, he confessed, his voice barely audible over the London traffic. I knew what she was pulling, but I didn't shut it down, because in my head, I justified it as just a rehearsal, no harm, no foul. I figured I could just smooth it over when you finally walked in. I stared at him. This was the quintessential Graham Turner. He wasn't a guy who actively plotted evil. He was a guy who passively allowed collateral damage. A guy who operated on the belief that he could always manage the fallout later. Because in his hubris, I was a fixed asset. I would always be there. I would always listen to his spin. I would always be bought off by hot soup, or expensive flowers, or an IPO pitch about the future. Graham, I said, my voice dropping an octave. Do you know how many man-hours I put into that wedding dress? He flinched. 3 months, he whispered. Do you know how many pearls I hand-stitched onto the bodice? No. 57. Do you know I stabbed my own finger with a needle and spent 20 minutes scrubbing my blood out of the French satin? He stared at the pavement. Do you know the real reason I refused to buy off the rack? He shook his head slowly. Because my mother passed away before she could see me walk down the aisle. His entire body locked up. On her deathbed, I promised her I would get married in a gown I built with my own 2 hands. My voice was devoid of emotion. So I engineered it myself. Every single seam. His eyes flooded with red. Zoe, oh my God. And you gave Lily permission to wear it like a costume on a stage. His bottom lip started quivering violently. You let another woman wear the promise I made to my dead mother, and you stood under the spotlights and kissed her. I didn't know, I swear I didn't know. You knew it was my custom design, I said brutally. You just didn't assign any value to what it meant to me. And that is the core failure. In 5 years of cohabitating, you never bothered to ask. Tears spilled over his lower lids. Silently, they tracked down his hollow cheeks and soaked into the expensive wool collar of his coat. Zoe, he choked out. I am so damn sorry. I watched a grown man cry in the middle of a London street. 5 years ago, seeing a tear in his eye would have shattered me. 3 years ago, it would have made me compromise. A month ago, it might have made me pause. But now, analyzing his breakdown, I felt nothing but a clinical, detached apathy. I didn't ask for an apology, I said. Then what do you want? He snapped his head up, tears tracking through his stubble. Give me a KPI. Give me a metric. I will hit it. I want you to leave this city. He swayed on his feet. Not for a weekend trip or a fiscal quarter, I clarified. Permanently. Zoe, you told Claire you just needed space. I don't need space, I said. I need you fully deleted from my ecosystem. He stared at me, his eyes wide, bloodshot, tears still flowing freely. Are you actually serious? Deadly. You're not going to leave the door open even a fraction of an inch? For down the line? The door is bricked over. But I flew 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. He pleaded, his voice cracking. I liquidated my position at the firm. I've been sleeping on a park bench for 3 days. You're telling me none of this registers? He fell silent. You think because you put in the extreme effort, I said, that you're entitled to a return on your investment. You think this is a transaction where, if you bid high enough, you win the asset back. The London breeze ripped a few dead leaves off a nearby oak, scattering them across the damp concrete between us. Every stunt you're pulling right now, the flight, the coat, the crying, it's entirely for your own ego, I said, analyzing him. To absolve your own guilt, to build a narrative. So that 10 years from now, you can sit at a bar and tell your bros, hey, I flew to Europe and gave it everything I had. I was the good guy. His fists were balled so tight his knuckles were white. But your PR campaign has absolutely zero to do with me. I turned around to finish my walk home. Zoe! His voice tore out of his throat, raw and desperate. Give me one data point. Just one specific metric. Tell me the exact catalyst that made you completely write me off. I'll re-engineer it. I can fix any variable. I stopped. I looked back over my shoulder. He was staring at me with the desperate intensity of a day trader hoping a single tip would save his portfolio. He genuinely believed if I handed him the broken code, he could patch the bug and reboot the system. The rehearsal, I said. When you kissed her. His face collapsed. Zoe, that was literally just blocking for the ceremony. Directly after you kissed her, I cut through his excuse. Lily made eye contact with me. His jaw snapped shut. Do you want to know what the telemetry of that look was? He shook his head, terrified. It was a confirmation ping. She was making sure I saw you two cross the line. His face turned a shade of gray you only see in hospital wards. And you, I continued relentlessly. After you kissed her, you saw me standing in the doorway. And your first instinct wasn't, holy shit, I'm so sorry. Your first instinct was, why are you off schedule? His knees buckled. He looked like the gravity in London had just doubled. That microsecond? I said. That's your specific data point. He didn't formulate a response. He just stood there, his posture completely shattered, his expensive coat hanging off him like a shroud. How do I fix that? He whispered to the pavement. I looked at him, burning the image into my brain for the last time. You don't execute a fix, I said. He slowly lifted his head. You just walk away. I physically can't. You can, I said coldly. You practiced it on Lily for years. You practiced it on me. Every single time you said, I'll just be a minute, and then ghosted me for a networking dinner. You were running drills on how to walk away. His mouth opened, closed, the excuses had finally run dry. I evaluated this man. I once let dictate my 5-year plan. He was standing in the harsh afternoon sunlight of a foreign city, emaciated, exhausted, completely bankrupt of leverage. You asked for my terms, I said. And he gave a weak, pathetic nod. I don't want your PR apologies. I don't want your physical proximity. I don't want your tears or your transatlantic boarding passes. I let the silence hang for a beat. I just want you gone. His structural integrity failed. His knees gave out, and he caught himself against the brick wall, his fingernails clawing at the mortar to keep from hitting the pavement. I turned around. This time, I kept my pace steady. My heels struck the London pavement with a clean, metronomic rhythm. Behind me, there were no footsteps trying to close the gap, no shouting, just the ambient noise of a double-decker bus shifting gears, growing louder until his presence was completely erased. When I rounded the corner onto my street, I turned my head. He was out of my line of sight. My pace naturally slowed. My adrenaline crashed, and my fingers trembled slightly. But only for 3 seconds. Then I inhaled the crisp air, shoved my hands deep into my trench coat pockets, and resumed my walk. My flat was 2 blocks down. Tonight, I needed to redline a structural blueprint for the East London project. The old architectural bones, if they possessed structural integrity, could be repurposed. The sections that were compromised by rot, you just had to aggressively demo them. I keyed into my building's lobby, and as I pulled the heavy glass door shut, a final gust of cool London wind slipped inside right before the magnetic lock engaged with a hard click. August 3rd. The official press release for the East London regeneration bid dropped. Simon forwarded the PDF to my iPhone while I was standing inside the dilapidated factory warehouse, natural light slicing through the rusted cast-iron framework. We had secured the contract. I slid my phone into my pocket and craned my neck to inspect the preserved truss system. 120 years of heavy industry cast iron, oxidized and battered, but bearing a load capacity way higher than the stress tests predicted. The legacy materials, the components that worked, were integrated into the new design. The toxic materials had been gutted and hauled to the landfill. I pivoted and walked toward the loading bay exit. Outside, the London August sun was blinding and dry. There wasn't an ounce of suffocating humidity in the air. I did not look back.